Sorry.
It's on, no?
Oh, it's on.
So minus 2 summation xi minus yi minus beta xi is equal to 0. Sure? Minus 2 cannot be 0. So this. So we have to solve this equation to get beta hat. Right? And if you solve this equation, what do you get? You get summation xi yi upon summation xi square. You get summation xi yi upon summation xi square. Sure? Is this clear? Right. So now, so we have beta hat is equal to yeah? Sure? This must all really be you. All of you will know this. Yeah? Sure? Don't write this down. This is all really, I'm just doing this for revision. This is equal to 1. Okay? So, because expectation summation xi ei is equal to 0. So, expectation beta is equal to beta. Right? Now, even if there is heteroscedasticity, that is the variance of ei is not constant, this condition continues to hold. As long as x and e are not correlated, expectation beta will be equal to beta. Right? Beta will also continue to be normally distributed because yi is normally distributed. So beta will be normal with mean beta. What will happen is the variance of beta will be different. Why do I say that? Because what will the variance of beta hat? We know that beta hat minus beta is summation xi ei upon summation xi square. Right? So, yeah? Right, friends? Sure? So variance of beta is this. Now think of only x1, x2, e1, e2 for simplicity. So this is right? Sure? Okay? This can be written as right? What is expectation E1 square? Variance of E1. So let's call it sigma 1 square. What is expectation of E2? What is expectation E2 square? Variance of E2 is called sigma 2 square. And what is E1 E2? Covariance E1 E2, let's call it 0. Right? Because we have got cross section data. So this formula will really become sigma 1 square sigma 2 square, or this can be written as, so basically only if you are willing to assume that sigma 1 square is the same as sigma 2 square will you get yeah. But if sigma 1 and sigma 2 are sigma 1 square and sigma 2 square are different, then you don't get this formula for the variance of beta. So if sigma 1 square and sigma 2 square are indeed different, you cannot use the formula sigma square upon summation xi square for the variance of beta hat. So if you use that formula for the variance of beta hat, your t values will be wrong. Your confidence intervals will also go wrong. Right? Therefore, it's important to determine whether this holds in the data. Right? Typically what would happen, just take some examples where this might hold. Okay. Suppose you have two cases. Suppose we have studied the relationship between people's incomes and the percentage of their incomes which they spend on food. People's incomes on the x-axis and the percentage of their incomes that people spend on food on the y-axis. Right? So this is the x-axis, people's income, y-axis, the percentage of their income that they spend on food. Now if you are very poor, then presumably most of your income would be spent on food. But you would expect a downward sloping relationship. Right? As people's incomes go up, the percentage of their incomes which they spend on food will go down. Right? Sure? But the point is, if your income is very low, that is, if your income is very low, if you are just earning say 50 rupees a day, then most of that 50 rupees a day will be spent on survival. So most of your money will be spent. But if you are earning 5,000 rupees a day, then obviously you can't eat food worth 5,000 rupees. Right? Okay, you will do other things with those 5,000 rupees, you will save them extra, percentage on food will go down. If you are very poor, then most people's percentage of income spent on food will be around this regression line. But as you become wealthier, your spreads can become wider. Right? Which means that the variance of the error term will go up as x increases. That is, the variance of the error term will not be constant. The variance of the error term will not be constant. Right? This is one case where you have a problem where it's not right to assume that sigma 1 square, sigma 2 square and sigma 3 square are all the same. Right? They would have been had this been like this. Had this spread all been like this, so this could have been, had it been like this, then you could have assumed. But the variance is increasing. Another case would be, suppose Y is the agricultural output in the district and X is the rainfall in the district. Suppose Y is the agricultural output in the district and X is the rainfall in the district. So as rainfall increases, you would expect agricultural output to increase, but if there is too much rainfall, then agricultural output will decline. So the data would really be some scatter like this. It will be rising up to a point and then falling beyond the point. Right? If you don't account for this curvature, you fit a simple linear regression, yi is equal to alpha plus beta xi, for example, and if your regression goes like this, okay, then you clearly see there is heteroscedasticity. Because here, so this will go like this. So the variance of the error term here is smaller, it's larger here. It's smaller here, it's larger here. Right? Okay? Which will mean that even if you misspecify your regression equations, you can actually get heteroscedasticity. Right? First, how does one detect heteroscedasticity? How does one detect heteroscedasticity? Okay, there are a variety of tests. So is the idea clear why you would have heteroscedasticity? And what happens if there is heteroscedasticity? What happens to the estimates of beta hat? Are they biased? Does heteroscedasticity create a bias in beta hat? No, they continue to be unbiased. But what is the implication? The variance of beta hat is not given by sigma square upon summation xi square. You have to use a different formula. So if you want to use the t values, etc., you have to use a different formula, sigma square upon summation xi minus x bar square is no longer the formula. Right? You have to modify formulas correctly. Right? So the question then is, if your data have heteroscedasticity, how do you detect heteroscedasticity? Okay. I'm not going to talk to you the whole host of tests in the literature. Some of them are so outdated that they are taught for historical reasons, like the Goldfeld-Pond test. We'll not be using that. We'll be using a test which you can apply. Yeah, which is called a Broich-Pagan test. The BP test, the Broich-Pagan test. What does the Broich-Pagan test do? The Broich-Pagan test, for example, think of a situation like this. Suppose yi is equal to alpha plus beta xi plus ei. BREUSCH Broich-Pagan test. Okay, the Broich-Pagan test. Okay, Broich-Pagan test. What does the Broich-Pagan test do? How does it work? The basic idea is that the variance of the error term depends upon some set of variables, z. Let's for simplicity assume that the variance of the error term also depends upon x, like it increase or decrease. No? So it also depends upon x. So it's some function of x. The variance of the error term is some function of x. Right? So we'll write some function of xi. Right? So one way of doing this is to first carry this regression out. Y hat, right? Carry this regression out. Find values of alpha hat and beta hat. Then find ei hat. First you do this regression, find values of alpha hat and beta hat, and calculate ei hat. That's step 1. In step 2, you do the following. In step 2, you do the following. You take squares of e hat I square, and regress this on, say, gamma plus theta xi, theta 1 xi plus theta 2 xi square plus vi. Because you think that the variance e hat I square is an estimate of the variance of ei. The variance of E1 will be sigma square 1 का estimate है E1 hat square, sigma square 2 का estimate है sigma 2 hat, E hat 2 square, and so on. You think that this variance depends upon xi somehow. So you say, okay, let's try whether it depends upon xi and xi square. So you do this regression, E hat I square. Okay? The null hypothesis is that there is no heteroscedasticity. That is, variance of ei is constant, which will be true if theta 1 and theta 2 are 0. Which will be true if theta 1 and theta 2 are 0. If theta 1 and theta 2 are both 0, then e hat I square will only be gamma plus vi. So expected value of e hat I square will be v gamma, which will mean that the expected value of e hat I square is a constant. So the variance of the error term is constant. So the null hypothesis of no heteroscedasticity can be tested by testing H naught, theta 1 is equal to theta 2 is equal to 0 against the alternative or both not equal to 0. Okay. Now this would look like an F test in this relation, but it can't be an F test because we do not know what is the distribution of Vi. If Vi is not normal, then that whole idea of F test doesn't work, because for an F test the error term has to be normal. We don't know what is the distribution of Vi, right? So therefore, what the method to do it here is to use a general form of a test called a Lagrange multiplier test, which works even if the error terms are not normal. Okay, you will learn more about this test if you take the statistical foundations course in the third semester, where you learn the derivations of this test and so on. But here we have to learn the procedure about how to do this. Then, if you do this regression, what you do is, if n is the number of observations and r square, if r square is the r square of this regression, take the number n into r square, which is called the LM or Lagrange multiplier statistic. Okay, this is called the LM statistic. Under the null hypothesis, this statistic is distributed chi-square with 2 degrees of freedom, because we are testing for 2 restrictions. We are testing for 2 restrictions. So under the null hypothesis, this test statistic is distributed chi-square with 2 degrees of freedom, because we are testing for 2 restrictions. Theta is equal to 0, theta 2 is equal to 0. Right? So what you do is you calculate, to do this regression, take the r square, not the adjusted r square, the unadjusted r square of this regression, multiplied by the number of degrees of freedom, that is number of observations you have, number of degrees of freedom that you have. Compare that to the chi-square with 2 degrees of freedom. If you find the value larger than the chi-square with 2 degrees of freedom, you reject the null hypothesis and say that there is heteroscedasticity. Okay, this is called the Broish-Pagan test for heteroscedasticity. Yeah. Okay. So first you do a regression. The first statistic of a regression, y is equal to alpha plus beta xi plus ei. Right? Okay, let me take you through all this. Right, suppose you have an original regression, y is equal to alpha plus beta xi plus ei. You think ei, you suspect that ei could be heteroscedastic. That is, the variance of ei could be changing. The first step is to do the original regression and find y hat I. Find e hat I, which is yi minus y hat I. Square e hat I. And suppose you suspect variance of the error term to change with x. So regress e hat I square on x and x square. Because some formulation of x, it could be changing not only with x, but could be changing with x square, x and x square. In this model, the null hypothesis of no heteroscedasticity is equivalent to testing theta 1 is equal to theta 2 is equal to 0. Because if theta 1 and theta 2 are both 0, then obviously ei square is just gamma plus vi, or expected by vi square is just gamma, so the variance of the error term is constant. Right? So there is no heteroscedasticity. How do you test this? You can't use an F test because you do not know what is the distribution of vi. If vi is non-normal, then there is no, it can't be done as an F test, right? Because the F test requires normality. So what do you do here? You use a test called a Lagrange multiplier test, which in this context is called the Broish-Pagan test. But the general formulation is of a Lagrange multiplier test. How do you go about that? You do this regression, you take the r square of this regression. You multiply the r square with the degrees of freedom. The resultant is called the LM statistic. You compare that LM statistic to the chi-square distribution with degrees of freedom equal to the number of restrictions that you are testing here. Right? So suppose you did something like this. So you are testing for, what would be your chi-square degrees of freedom? 3, because now you are putting 3 restrictions. Right? Suppose you had 2 variables, x1 and x2 in the original regression. Then you might want to test for theta 1 xy, x1i plus theta 2 x2i plus theta 3 x1i, x2i plus theta 4 x1i square plus theta 5, right? In which case you will be testing for theta 1, theta 2, theta 3, theta 4, theta 5 equal to 0. So it means chi-square with 5 degrees of freedom. This is called the Broish-Pagan test. This is called the Broish-Pagan test for heteroscedasticity. Right? Is this clear? So this tells you how the variance of, if this allows you to test whether there is heteroscedasticity in the data or not.